Okay, hi everyone. If you're new, welcome to my channel where I just talk about things I find comment-worthy. If you're not new, welcome. And for today's topic of discussion, I essentially chose Sam Altman startups. That is because I came across a few reports or predictions that are saying that OpenAI might go bankrupt within the next 18 months. I think I'll do a video on that one as well. But for now, we're looking at his startup portfolio because I genuinely think that AI is nothing more than the catalyst for the bigger technologies that are to come. Because AI to this point hasn't solved a lot of issues, right? Like, if you look at the medical space, obviously there are currently startups that behave like ChatGPT, but for doctors. But again, they're just powered by the same infrastructures as ChatGPT is. And I don't think a study has currently quantified the impact of these apps for healthcare because most countries do not allow it. So, like, no one really worked on legislation that would allow, for instance, large language models in hospital rooms, not at least in Germany. So, you didn't solve any issues in the medical space. You didn't solve issues in the financial space. You just created a bubble. Then you also have the issue of, well, like autonomous driving. It works, but then again, it was there before AI became essentially a term. If you look at Waymo, I don't know how to pronounce the company. They are a startup founded by Google. They existed longer than OpenAI. Like they started rolling out the services in what, 2017, something around that. So I'm not going to classify it as AI because it's just a combination of various systems. So it didn't do a lot in the transformation or like logistics field. You also didn't solve, for instance, internal customer issues. So that is when you're trying to build internal apps that people can use. No one is really doing that. So a lot of companies are not doing that because it produces AI slop, and that is just really badly written software. Like you can use it, but it's not safe. And in most cases, it's not even, doing what you're trying to do. So again, you didn't solve a lot of issues. Like obviously people are now caring more about AI, but all in all, did it have an impact like penicillin, for instance, like the industrialization? Not really, but it's getting somewhere, right? And so I feel like the somewhere is the new scientific frontier that you can develop because you have AI. Because AI starts helping you in new ways that you previously didn't know that you were able to do. Because we haven't seen that yet. Like we haven't seen large language models in biotech building personalized drugs. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen current vision AI models designing drugs. Like we don't have that yet. But it seems like if you have a look at Sam Altman's startups, that he's thinking of this. So I'll link the startups down below where I found them. And I guess it makes a lot of sense to group them based on where they invest a lot and then trying to group them based on what they're doing. So I'm currently looking at my screen, so I won't be looking into the camera. Um, so essentially the two of his biggest bets were in Helion Energy, which is a fusion startup, and he funded them apparently with 500 million. No, wait. We had, yeah, no, so out of the $500 million round for the startup, he personally committed around $375 million for fusion energy startup. I assume that this startup is also the one that Microsoft is considering of using for the data centers to power them, but I'll have to check that. Next one is Retro Biosciences. I did check that one. Essentially, what they're trying to do is add 10 years to the healthy human lifespan. Now, the human lifespan is a concept in biotech or biology in which researchers argue that, for instance, our lifespan is not necessarily at 84 because that's on average how much you live, but it's like 40 years. Like you essentially have 40 years that you're not using because we don't understand our body well. That is the main idea. So essentially, you could live up to 120 years. Some papers do say that. Some papers will tell you, well, no, the human lifespan is actually 110. I don't know how they say how long your human lifespan is, but that is the idea. And this startup is trying to add 10 years to it, um, and trying also to develop drugs for Alzheimer's, from what I've understood. Also with stem cells, by the way. Then he's kind of copying Elon Musk. Like I have a feeling he's trying to be Elon Musk. Um, with his current net worth, that's probably not possible. I feel like me, like we, the average people, we're closer to Sam Altman than Sam Altman is to Elon Musk, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, so he did invest into Neuralink. He also has a different startup. It's called Merge Labs. They're essentially trying to do the same thing as Neuralink. If you don't know what Neuralink is, they're just using chips in your brain to help at least paralyzed people use technologies. So it's a brain-computer interface thing. It works. I like the idea of having paralyzed people being able to use technology to communicate with the environment, but I feel like Neuralink has a different mission. Another video. Okay. He invested into Helix Nano, essentially a platform where apparently you can design mRNAs like messenger RNAs, Ugh. RNAs, apologies. The importance of this molecule is essentially that during COVID, we were able to develop these vaccines pretty quickly because we used um, the same mechanism as mRNA does. So we essentially used spike protein, found the mRNA for that, and because this mRNA is being translated into a protein in our body, we were able, like everybody who got vaccinated, was able to build these proteins in the body and then develop antibodies to it. So that is quite different from the traditional vaccination process, where normally you're trying to kill the virus or bacteria and then just vaccinate it into people. So yeah, mRNA obviously is much faster than trying to kill bacteria or viruses for that point. Also pretty interesting. Then you have a lot of startups going into like the AI field for building things. Humane, Warp, and Slope fit into this category. You have mobile money providers in Africa. One is called Wave. You have robots, like robot delivery service startups. One is called Coco. You have cultivated meat startups in the UK called Uncommon. And then you have a lot of FinTech actually, which surprises me because I feel like biotech is the next big thing, which makes you more money than AI will. Because think about the possibilities of curing cancer, of curing certain diseases that we were not able to cure until now. So that's essentially the stack of startups: biotech, clean energy, and fintech. Now, does this tell us about our future, like even a bit? I do think that, oops, that if you look at how other billionaires are investing their money, that you will see a similar pattern. Like a lot of them will actually try to do biotech, even though they never majored in biology, but that's fine. And the goal is not to cure diseases, by the way, but to build a system where they can live forever, which I kind of find depressing, but feel free to live forever. Mainly because they can sustain their privileges and their status for longer, but I feel like that needs a different video. Clean energy makes also sense because you're trying to power your own ambitions, which take a lot of energy. So coming up with plans and ideas on, how you could do that much cheaper for yourself makes a lot of sense. FinTech is kind of like the field in which I think they will have a pretty negative impact, actually, because there is now a trend, which you also have noticed, to go into subscription-based products and services. Essentially, you're owning nothing. And because we live in a capitalistic society, owning nothing is a death certificate for you. Because if you don't own nothing, like if you own nothing, you don't have capital to produce. Because in order for you to produce capital, you need to own something, right? And so I feel like that's what fintech is currently being aimed at us, bringing us into these subscription-based models and not letting us anything to own. Because also it's easier to control people if they don't own anything. But I feel like that's also a topic that the Economic Forum of Davos mentioned once. I think it was Klaus Schwab, CEO of a certain hedge fund, who said, "You'll be happy and you'll own nothing." So I think these fintechs are going into that direction if there's a billionaire behind them. Anyways, I think that's it. Um, I'll link down below the startups, and if you've watched to the end, thank you. I feel like I rambled a lot. I'm not, I don't feel too well today, actually. Anyways, so we went over these startups. I hope they give you a clear picture on what might be coming next because there is a trend. But I generally hope that biotech, for instance, doesn't end up as AI currently in a bubble and not achieving anything. So yeah, see you for the next video.